always have to give it a minute before I'm sure whether it's on or not. When I'm not sure if it's on or not, doesn't matter. Anyway, so the plan for today is to get started, meaning feed the cats, get them both going. Then I gotta go put my tea on, sit back down as per usual. But unlike per usual, I have an entire chapter in my head, but that I can't get to until I get a little bit of background work done. So what that means is that I need to go in. I have like about 200 pages now, so go in, start separating it by chapter, which is exciting and horrible at the same time because I like having it all in one steady flow that I can just read top to bottom. And organization is not my best feature. I probably have a hard drive somewhere of like 2 terabytes of things for the last decade that it like 50% of it is just duplicates, like duplicate from just different devices I've had it on, copied and pasted and made different folders and stuff like that. And every time I think about going into it, I'm just like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. I'll just buy another hard drive one day. So I digress. What I got to do is take the 200 pages or so and then start separating them by now what I can identify as chapters, which is pretty cool. It's pretty interesting, and I'm really curious as to how it breaks up in terms of how much goes into what. I think that's pretty. I think that's pretty interesting. So the reason I've decided that is because initially chapters were broken down by characters. So a character go from one to another. You meet a new character, and then I started with that character. I go on for a little bit with that character, and I kind of called it a tag system where I didn't switch characters unless they were directly involved with one another, and then I would either pass on to them, or in another scenario would be if a character goes to sleep, passes out, gets knocked unconscious, just something where they're not there anymore. Then I will give my excuse to jump to another character. That's how I've been writing it thus far, and I've been very comfortable with that. Everything has been kind of minute for minute, which is kind of how I like it. I like writing a story that's very cohesive. You're walking through it in the shoes with the character at the same time. There's not a lot of yada yada TLDR as we're moving through things. And so I was able to kind of open and close everything that I've written so far in terms of days. So a true chapter for me would be the first entire 24-hour period, which would start with a character's introduction, going on, meeting another character, moving on, going into a new area, moving on, just that same pattern all the way until the end of basically a 24-hour period. By that point, you've covered about 5 different characters or so. That all kind of interweave and their stories kind of meet each other, branch off, things like that. I thought that was very cool. I think the way I did that was very clever on my part. I'm patting myself on the back because just for starting off, it makes things very cohesive. It makes me understand where things are, where things can be broken up, where things can be added, and so on and so forth. Even if that one day that was very neat and tidy gets broken up into now what's happening as chapters. It's being broken up in chapters. We're seeing that. So it may just end up where by the final right, it's a joke to even say at this point, a 24-hour period might be actually 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 chapters. We'll see as we go forward, but that's the plan. So it's a little bit of getting that background stuff out of the way, which shouldn't take a billion years, but it is just going to be me just very focused. I'm going to pull a very rare one and do the double headphones. Now, what double headphones means is that I cannot talk. I'm listening to music, I'm thinking about the things I'm going to say, I'm typing things down. There's only so many circuits on the board that can, pass the synapses. You get what I'm saying? So the whole palaver of the times where I can just kind of start off, I have something on my mind, but I'll tell a story to kind of cohesively gather myself, and then, I'll shut down the stream and then get going with that. It's not going to be like that today. Today is going to be a lot of just getting the work done, and then once the chapters are broken up, the reason I have to do that right now is because I kind of have an entire chapter planned. It's maybe the biggest I've had so far because thus far I've done a lot of what I call fence posting, which is just setting things down in the story so far that I can explode into just big areas, big scenes, big set pieces, things like that. I've been happy with that. I've had no problems with that until I got to the point where now it's just a very brief read as you're going through it. It's very much like this big thing happens, and then these new areas, and this. There's no real time to breathe and no real time to stop and kind of absorb things. It just seems like one gigantic instance after another, and that's not my intent. It was just how it kind of worked out to begin with, and now the process of breaking those moments up, spreading them out, allowing you to meet characters, hear backstories, get introduced to the world a little bit better. Almost a week ago by now, it was the idea of just going in and top to bottom adding world details, but I am not good at that. I'm not good at settling down and saying this is what I want to do in this situation. I'm much better at painting the stories of those that take place in those areas, and then I suppose I'm not no other choice at that point is just later on go over it again and just add those details that make it a little bit more colorful. It's a little bit embarrassing thinking of that because I'm like, man, yeah, I really would like to know what like the layout of a building is, but I just have no patience for that right now. It just makes absolutely no sense. So later on, after I'm like, oh, they spoke to this building, and then they moved to this area, and then they moved to this area, I'm just gonna have to get the hammer, the wood, and the nails, and just start like making it more cohesive and logical at that point of how it all flows together. But for right now, it doesn't really matter because like I said, as I was going from like my tag system that I was thinking of, it all follows very, very smoothly throughout one set path. So you can understand it. That's what I was really proud about, like early on, is that you could start to finish and be like, oh, okay, yeah, I get how one leads to another and leads to another, even if it's very brief, even though there's no other like details aside from dialogue and things like that. Still, that's what it was. Is there anything else to say? What am I at? 6 minutes and 30 seconds? I think that's it. So the first most important thing is to get the animals out of the way, make sure they're comfortable, make sure they're happy. That way they're not going to be trying to attack me. They're not going to be like meowing in the back. They don't even meow. It's just like weird, like it's one of those, and it just drives me nuts. It just makes it churning in my stomach because it's like them telling me, man, I don't feel good right now. Even if it's not, maybe there's just like, this is the sound I make to piss you off and make you move. That might be it, because there's a lot of other sounds they know they make that I'm just like, oh, that's cool, and I'm not moving. But that one in particular, I'm just like, I hate it. Okay, I'm going. So I'm going. Anyway, oh, you know what? Do I want to listen to my music yet? The first two tracks I was listening to as I was like prepping, I was like, oh, these are so freaking good. I'm like in a good mood to just listen to music. But yeah, you know what? Let's start now. So I'm going into my little bubble. You're probably gonna hear very off tune singing. If I hear myself singing, then I kind of adjust myself. But if I can't hear myself singing, then that's your problem, not mine. All right, so school. Oh, and you know what? Before I even get into this, the very first one, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 Boss 1. If anyone out there wants to have a little argument in the conversation, in the comments, my personal opinion that I think is right and everyone else is wrong, is that Sonic the Hedgehog has way better music in their entire catalog of their franchise than Mario. If you're like a big Mario, like, oh no, but there's so many Mario songs stick out in my head. They're so like identifiable. My man, my lady, my dude, my person. Look, Mario is like elevator music. It's really good, like weird Japanese soap shop where they did like the whole puff puff thing. Like it's this, because I don't know if you know, but Nintendo, they are a toy company. They started off making like pachinko machines, which, like, for one, is a whole huge underground Japanese Yakuza like scam thing where basically gambling is illegal. You're not allowed to do that in Japan at the time. I don't know what the laws have changed, but the way they would get around it is by having pachinko machines where you would go in, play it, get the prize, take the prize out, and cash it in for actual cash at another adjacent shop. And that's essentially how you got around a gambling thing where it's like, well, no, I'm not gambling. This is a prize I won, and I'm just selling my prize at a pawn shop. That's not gambling, dummy. So very, very clever. So that's one of the things that Nintendo got their start off. The other thing, as I recall from the history books, is short-term like rentals. Like if you need like an apartment. God, well, why can't I, like a motel? Oh, that's it. That's it. Short-term motel rentals. So basically, like, that's weird. Is that weird? Like, I think that's super weird and creepy that their start is by getting around the law and by having basically places where you can go to get laid and not have to like spend tons of money. But anyway, I digress. That's like, maybe I'm wrong about the history about that. Maybe I just read that somewhere and I was like, that's weird. And then I read it somewhere else and then I read it like a bunch of other, because I'm not the kind of person I'm like, oh yeah, this is an interesting article. I'm gonna be like, oh, that's the truth of it right there. God dang it. No, I'm someone who's like, are you sure about that? So I go around, I look at other things, I gather, and then I make my decision on whether or not something is valid or not, depending on how many sources I could find on it that are completely unadjacent. Like, because that's the thing. Some places would be like, this is my report. Another person would be like, this is also my report in small font. They would be like, this is my report based on this other report. So you're like, that's not really a new report. This is basically reporting on that other report, not your own. You get what I'm saying? It's this whole like murky thing when it comes to the news. So you really have to dig around a little bit. You have to see if there's things that, for one, anyone that cuts things into sections, that's garbage. Get rid of it. You need to find your news in complete unedited. If you can find transcripts of things, yeah, you look through things like that. So that's like my mentality. That's how I look at things, and not because I'm like, oh man, I gotta desperately get to the bottom of the truth and get in there. It's because I'm that guy. I like, my lady likes watching horror, ghost stuff, alien stuff sometimes, and mystery, like murder mysteries, like all the time. I got no patience for that. I'm like, dude, I've seen people murdered all the time. Like, I'm not all about that. I mean, it's not that like a PTSD. It's just like an uninteresting thing. But at this point, I live in Philly. Like, dude, if you live in Philly, like downtown Philly, and you haven't seen somebody die, I don't know what to say. You know what? I will do the world a favor and tell a story before I get into my writing my book and thing. I'm working in Philly. Ritz Camera, they shut down, so I can say whatever I want about them. But man, they almost made it 100 years. Either way, I was down in downtown Philly, corner of Chestnut and Walnut. There's like a Dunkin' Donuts. I don't know if it's still there. And then there was like a shop, and then Ritz Camera, and then like an art shop. You know what I mean? So if you're from the Philly area, you might know what I'm talking about. But at the time, I was taking a train all the way down from PA, closer to the Jersey end, or whatever. I'm not gonna GPS my ass. So I could. I don't even live there anymore. So if y'all want to check that out, I think the neighbor I had when I lived in Pennsylvania, was a big gun owner. This big dude, he had like guns all over. I remember finding like giant rifle rounds outside my house, and I think he's telling us to be quiet. This is creepy. But either way, I think that motherfucker, when we moved out, we had the door unlocked because we had to go, and so our family came in. They cleaned out everything, but I think in the point before, when we left to when our family came, he may have came in and stole my comic books. I had like a big duffel bag of comic books. That was my thing, man. That was like my anchor to my childhood. That was like, there was so many things in there that I was just like very, very nostalgic about. That I had very strong feelings about. Gone. And I asked my family, like, we didn't see that bag, and I was like, so I don't know if who else would, whatever. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's not important. But at this point in my life, I'm just like, man, I'm kind of glad they're gone. I don't want that shit like sitting around. I could have passed it on to my kid, but at the same time, I could absolutely see it having gotten just like gross. Like a big bag of things I got pissed on by the cats, and I didn't know about it for like 2 years. I look at it, it's all moldy and smells, and I can see shit like that happening. So I'm not gonna be too much like, oh man, like I wish I had it, and it's a shame and stuff like that. Shit happens, you know what I mean? So I digress. Do I digress? What the hell was I saying? I was going to tell a story about a thing, Philly. So, why was I in Philly? I was working for Ritz Camera. They went out of business. You see, like, the loading thing, like, just above my head right now, just like, the steam comes out of my ear. What the fuck? I was going to tell a story. It was going to be a pretty good story, too. Oh, yeah, if you live in Philly and haven't seen someone die, that was... Wow, saying it out loud like that again to remind myself sounds kind of horrible, but fuck it, it's the truth. Whatever, I'm moving on. So, I was getting off work, walking to the train station, and it's a little bit of a hike. It's nothing major or anything like that, but it's a good a bunch of blocks. I can't even count them by this point because country block and a city block are completely different. Like, I remember moving from the city where I was very, very young. You'd be like, oh yeah, you go 10 blocks down that way, you make a left, and then you go that way, and you're like, that's no big deal. And in Pennsylvania, when it was like out in the sticks, and they're just like, yeah, you go like 3 blocks down that way. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. I'll walk it. And they're like, maybe you should take a bike. I was like, I don't have a bike, so I start walking, and you realize that 3 blocks in the country is just like, it fucking goes. You bring a snack when you got to go a couple blocks. So either way, you going in Philly, going home. And I'm at a corner, and there's a guy tweaking as fuck. Like, he's on the corner, he's going like this. Like, he's dancing himself, he's jiving, he's scratching himself, he's looking around, and I'm like, That's what it is. It's his problem, not mine. It's a shame, but there's a lot of me focus. I gotta eat. Like I gotta get home. I weigh like 108 pounds. I weigh like 108 pounds at that point. I'm like 5'8", and I was just trying to work as much as I can. But walking to the initial train station, paying for the train, going all the way down to Philly, walking to my job, standing there for the 8 hours doing it in reverse, man. Like I didn't come home with a lot of money, so there wasn't a lot of time for me to be like other people's problems. I just got into a relationship. She was going to college, and she was like, "Should I work?" And I was like, "Hell no, you need to focus on school." So I'm gonna work 24/7 as much as I fucking can, and I will do everything while you focus. And then when you're a big brainiac, then you could get your big girl job, and then I could retire my ass or something, and then we can see how it goes. So I'm at that corner, and I shit you not, I'm not kidding about I don't embellish. That's the one big thing about me. When I tell my stories, I don't care whether I look good or bad or whatever else. That's just the story, man. That's just how it happened. So I'm at the corner, and I kid you not, school kids, little kids that are there, that are just like little bops that are in like a little bit of group. They're moving in like little groups in downtown for safety and stuff. They might have an adult with them or something, but lots of maybe they don't. It's just little groups they gather for just cohesiveness as you're moving through the city. So they're there. They're at the corner. There was a nun. I kid you not. I can't make this shit up. I can make this shit up. I'm a very good liar, but I don't like lying. I think that's one of the worst things people can do on planet Earth. Like, why? Just own up to stuff. Say what it is. Like, don't lie. Either way, there's a nun, and she's like full garb, and I'm like, that's a little unusual. I don't see like a lot of nuns moving around, but there's a lot of churches. There's a lot of old-fashioned churches, Catholic nuns all over the place. I went to Catholic school, so I'm not going to be like, this is the weirdest thing in planet Earth. Like, I got my knuckles fucking whacked like a dozen times by fucking nuns. So, yeah, I'm not going to be like, that's crazy weird. Like, all right, she's got shit to do. Maybe she got hungry and I digress. Little kids, a nun, just people looking to go to work, just a mob of people at a corner. You know what I mean? Obviously you do. So we're waiting, but this guy over here, he's like looking, and he's going back and forth, and he's like amped up on something, and he's just going, and then he books it. He decides that he's not going to wait for the light to turn red, which it did in like 10 seconds, like 10, 15 seconds after he just so he just ran right out, and the traffic is not a pause. There was no break in it. It's not like a Frogger situation where you're like, I got it, and then you could hop your ass away. No, it was like a tight flow of traffic going through, so he just books it on. As he's booking it, a cab driver that my heart goes out to, man. This is a guy that's just like, this shit is not probably new to him. Maybe he's seen it happen to other, but he did not need this in his day. That this man just decided to do the absolute Olympic run across the Philly street that was completely busy. Cabbie's going, making the turn, and so I see this guy booking it. I look over, and it's just like, it's not even slow motion. It's just like all in like a blink where it's like, he's going. I see the cabbie, and I'm just like, okay, no big deal. And then the two meet in the middle. And the guy goes bad. Like, he goes like if you hit a fucking deer, where the legs go out, he goes up, he lands on his fucking head, and I'm like, fuck. All right. And a lot of times in the other areas I have lived in, I have to help out. Like, I'm getting in there. I'm gonna do my best to help out. There's been situations, people's car broken down on a bridge, and I'm wearing flip flops, and I'm like, sweetheart, drive real slow. I'm gonna go in front, just block traffic while so I'm that guy that's just I like helping. And I say all the time, and people have acknowledged that this is probably accurate, is that if I ever am gonna die, because I'm likely gonna be immortal if otherwise, is that it's gonna be helping someone. It's doing something stupid to try and help out, and it's maybe gonna be unnecessary, maybe it's gonna be helpful, but I'm gonna absolutely Yu Hakusho myself out of reality. So I digress. I'm looking, and I'm like, instincts are about to kick in, but already the whole traffic has stopped, and literally the situation makes it so that there's nothing you can do. The light turns, it's time to go, and the flow of traffic just pushes you. Even if I'm like trying to get over, and I'm like, this dude's like bleeding out the fucking side of his head, and he's on the floor, like at least someone needs to like get us. There's people. The cabbie is like, but he already has a cell phone out looking to call the cops. There's a dozen other people. If you look around, they're looking to take action, but they're in a position to do so. People that work at the businesses and stuff like that. But the people that are there in the mix, the flow of people, they just fucking went. And that was like maybe the first time of my life. I've been in instances where I was in a situation where I was a person that was on the ground and everyone else was like, well, I wasn't gonna say that everyone else was like stepping over and ignoring me. Everyone else was kind of like spitting on me and punching me and like kicking me in the face and shit like that. That's a different situation, but it's still similar. You know what I mean? So, what was I? So yeah, just getting pushed along, and like I'm on the other side of the street. I'm like looking back, and like just everything is stalled. I already hear like cops in the distance, and my brain is just like, I gotta catch my train, and it felt horrible. It felt horrible that my brain was like, yeah, no, there was no like wall of being like, oh man, I gotta go back and like interject myself in the situation. Maybe I could help out in some way or form. No, there was no even time for that. It was just get on with my life because there's literally no other choice. So that was just like a snapshot of like one day in Philly, of how it is, and just yeah, none school kids, business people. It's like they already knew. They were not phased. No one was even blinking. It was just light turn. It's time to go. Traffic stopped. There's shit going on, but this is going. We all kind of went on with our day. So very very sobering story, but a little bit of insight on how like real life is. A lot of people don't expect that. A lot of people that are not from that kind of atmosphere might look at a situation where something terrible goes wrong. Excuse me, and they're like that. I got to do something. I was that person, but reality is a little bit different for different people. In different circumstances. So it is what it is. So anyway, now I've spoken for long enough. I got to go get the cats ready. And then that's what it is. And again, like I said, I like talking a lot at the beginnings because the showman in me, or whatever you want to say, I don't like starting off and being like quiet. I don't like just giving the impression that I am just isolated in my place and unapproachable, and anyone that's out there or around has no business talking to me. How dare they? No, I like creating some kind of dialogue, trying to be as funny as I can be, or maybe talking about serious stuff or anything like that. Just I don't know, anything I can to kind of say hello, I guess. But I gotta go, like I said. The cats are nowhere to be found, which is a good sign. I remember I saw my little meatball eating the dry food, which I say he doesn't like to do, but he does anyway, but just out of spite. But they're around, I know. So once I get going, you'll probably hear them. All right, get some music in. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I haven't put up chat in any way, shape, or form. So all of that was not knowing if there was anyone actually here, viewing, watching, or anything like that. But that's how I am. Yeah, it's no big deal. Even if there was, if I wasn't streaming, I may have been talking to myself out loud in a similar capacity. Oh man, that sounds really sad. I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean it like that. I don't know. Like, anyone that spends a lot of time and becomes very comfortable in isolation, not like bouncing off the walls, but someone that can like spend that time and be like, you know what, I'll read a book, or maybe I'll learn something, or something like that. They get it. But for the majority of people that have a lot of interactions with other people on a constant basis, whether it's family or friends or work or whatever it is, I could see how it could definitely, the presentation on that one is just like, oh. I don't have friends. Like, let's not get that right. I'm not gonna, like I say, I'm a fantastic liar, but I don't like doing it. Yeah, I don't have like family or friends or anything like that I like do. I spend my time with my family. I spend my time at home. Bouncing around with the various animals and cooking and cleaning and stuff like that. Like I said earlier on, with my wife going through college and her getting her big girl job and stuff like that, she's making her money. We're not superstars or anything like that, but we're crawling out of debt slowly, so we're making it work. And in that time, she's like, work on your book, like work on the family, like spend time at home, paint and draw. Like she loves waking up. Where I'm like, I think 2 days ago. I was out at the backyard. Unfortunately, our duck has passed away. Very nasty way. I don't want to talk about it. It's just a downer. It's just a bummer. It's more of like a real life bummer than anecdote about time I was in Philly. You know what I mean? So I'm out in the garden, and it's interesting to note too, because the duck did pass away just like a couple days ago. But right before my birthday too, to add a little cherry on top. But I go out in the yard, and it seems like the very last rose of the season has bloomed, and it's just this big, massive, beautiful like rose. And we've had a bunch of different shade grown in with a couple different trees that we've planted and stuff. So this was the first time where it's gotten the proper amount of light and shade kind of mixture, and the edges weren't burned. Like every inch of this rose was absolutely perfect. So and it was gotten to the point where if you're a gardener, you understand. It gets to a point where once it's in maximum bloom, after that, then it just starts deteriorating. And if you trim it at that point, then it's a cool thing. At first, I was like, oh, I hate trimming them off, but you see the dead ones mixed in with the growing ones, and then it's just you understand that to cultivate the life, you have to cull the ones that are just kind of in their best state. So I get that one down, and the whole purpose of my garden, the whole purpose of all the flowers and things that I grow, is just so I can like make little bouquets for my wife. And so at this point, that was the last of that. Nothing else has like grown, but this one giant beautiful flower after this really sad time. So I clip it, and my wife was just like waking up. I go upstairs and like rubbing her back, and I show her the rose and I give it to her, and she was just really really happy about it. And then we actually gave the rose to our son. We let him play with it a little bit, and he was very very gentle with it. But I was like, no, I don't want it to get all messed up. Like when we're on our walks, and there's like little weeds and like little things like growing around, like very very tiny little flowers that I'm not gonna be that guy that like I'm walking around someone's yard and I see they have like a big bunch of flowers. Like, I'll just take like one for my kid or something. I'm not that guy. I can't be that guy. I have a bad situation where when I was a young kid, I was with my grandmother in the city, and there's no greenery anywhere except this like beautiful beautiful like garden that my grandmother had, that was just like there was a street, there was a sidewalk, and then there was this here that had a very small short fence. These big giant beautiful flowers. It was the kind of flowers I don't know how to describe. I don't know the actual name of them, but I could do a hell of a job describing them. They were like a bluish purple. I'm colorblind, so forgive me if I'm a little off on that. But they grew in kind of large clusters, and that was the word. That was the phrasing. Yeah, I was gonna say they were little flowers in a big pile, and there was a bunch of little. But yeah, I described it perfectly the first time. So and then my brain was like, "Is there any better way to say it?" No, that was it. So yeah, they grow in like these little like clusters like this. And I remember being out there, and she was like working on the garden. A lady came by, and she didn't just pick a flower within the cluster. She straight up in front of both of us grabbed a giant cluster, and not even like the stem of it, but right at the base of it, just like twisted it and snapped it right off. Didn't even look at us, didn't smile and wave, nothing. We don't even know this lady. She just like broke it off, grabbed it, and just like walked off. And I like me, I love my grandmother. She was like the most special person in my entire life. And I feel like I gave her exactly what she needed in that situation. Because before I even saw my grandmother's reaction to all that, I was like, excuse me, lady. And she was like, ah, ha, 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 ha. I was like, ah, ha, 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 ha. Yeah, no, not again. Don't ever do that again. Walking off. Go away. I look over at my grandmother, and she was just like, she was smiling at me, but she was just like, anyway, pissed myself off. So, what was I doing? I just spent half an hour just talking about how I have something to do, but I'm talking too much. But you know how I am. If you saw the previous videos, you know how I am. So, anyway, get the cats done. Also, I gotta go back like 8 tracks because, honest to God, I've honestly been talking that much. Oh, you know what? This song right here, He's a Demon, He's a Devil, He's a Doll by Betty Hutton. That's the exact song that was playing when my son was born. I asked the doctors. I was in there, and I was like, y'all mind if I play my soundtrack? Like, it's got this whole, like, like, I know my wife loves my music, so I have a good mix of music and stuff. So, and I talked to her beforehand. I was like, would you mind? My wife was like, no, please do. I don't want to hear myself while I'm giving birth and stuff. And I was like, dope. So we're in that situation, and she's about to give birth. And I look over at the doctor, and I was just like, hey guys, I got my phone. And the doctor was like, if you have music to play, that would be great. That's fantastic. Like, it seems like perhaps maybe people never really think about that to like soothe the area to make it a little bit more like they do this a lot. Like on my end, I'm not over here being like, oh man, I gotta chill the doctors out so I don't want to distract them or anything like that. So that's why I was like, I do this like 80 times a day. Are you kidding me? So I was like, yeah, mind if I play my playlist? Like, so before the whole like baby was actually out, the doctors are all around and they're handling my wife and they're doing what they gotta do and they're looking over and bopping their heads like, yeah, go play, like, yeah, listen to good music. And I was like, yeah, thank you. And so I was a little bit nervous at that point because I'm like, oh my god, what if he's born to just such a corny, whack song? I would be so mad. Oh, he pops out some Limp Bizkit. Is like, I just want to know days where you just don't want to wake up. Like, I'd want to exit from reality for a moment. But thankfully, maybe Betty Hutton's "He's a Demon, He's a Devil, He's a Doll." If you've played the Fallout series, you've probably heard this song. That was playing. So this is one of those things where I was like, that's a very specific about a person's song as my child's being born. And my brain short circuited. I was like, that is probably the most amazing song that could have been on while my child was born. He's a demon, he's a devil, he's a doll. And thus far, he's the sweetest little lightning bolt that you've ever seen on planet Earth. He wakes up with a giggle and he goes to bed with a song. Like, he's always happy. We don't know how. And but he's got energy. He's got the energy to go. So I don't know, man. I told my wife yesterday. Did you say you had shit to do? Shut up. I told my wife yesterday. She's big on reaction streamers and watching them and stuff. And I don't care so much for watching the reaction streamers. I love finding people for my wife to get into. That's like the biggest pleasure for me. Is just being like finding that thing where I'm like, here's something new. Check it out, see if you like it. And just like fading into the background and like she's watched seasons of their stuff and I'm just like, there you go. There you go. It's pretty cool. Where was I going with that? I love my wife. Oh no, I was telling her yesterday that someone was watching Hunter x Hunter and I was like, I hate to tell you this. I don't. This is amusing to me, but our child is so clearly going to be this little like ripped ab, just like 6-year-old with like an open shirt and wearing shorts and flip flops and stuff. Because he's a what was the term? I was gonna make a Game of Thrones reference, but it's been so effing long and they pissed me off about so many things that I forgot. He was like a summer child. I was gonna call him like a sweet summer lad, something like that. But I was just like Game of Thrones. But anyway, yeah, he's such a sweet boy. But I was like, yeah, he's my child, and I know myself throughout my childhood. There was one point living in Jersey City on York Street. So if you ever want to fucking validate this story, apparently before memory kicked in and I was a very little bean, I used to just book it out of the house butt naked. I would just strip off my diaper and everything else and just fucking book it. And I don't remember that. I do remember being caught by the local bruja. It was this old Spanish lady who had these nails that came out. Like, she had nails that actually came out and curled. And I remember, like, anytime like I walked by her place and the door was open, there's always, like, weird candles and a nasty smell that came out of her place. And just, like, yeah, she was creepy. She was just the local witch lady. And she caught me. And she had her, like, hands on my shoulders in the middle of the street. I remember, because it was like a sleepy street. Not a lot of cars came by. It was a one-way street. I was booking. She caught me in the middle of the street. And she, in her broken English, because they're all Puerto Rican. I remember her nails, creepy long nails on my skin. And she said, if I ever see you out here naked again, I'm going to cut off your little peepee. And I was like, ah! Right. I was like, that's not, I feel like that's like one of the, like, first memories I had of being scarred and running home and being like, great lady with the long nails. She said she's going to cut off my dick and I don't know what's going to fuck it up. I'm never going to go outside again. Fuck that shit. Like, I don't know. I had such a weird childhood. It wasn't until I was like 22 that I learned that the neighbor that lived two houses down from us, every time I would go out to school, every time I was coming home from school, and he spotted me on the bike. He could be down the block. He could be anywhere. And like, I don't even, like, looking out his window and I don't even see him or anything. I hear him go, my name is Philippe. It's a French name. My mom picked it from the Man in the Iron Mask. I don't even know if she read the book. I'm pretty sure she only read like the back of it. I don't know. That's a very like Puerto Rican thing to do, to be like, oh. Seems like a really interesting book. It's an old book. That's an interesting name. I'm gonna name my kid that. Fuck it. Because there's a point in time where Hispanic women in America realize that they don't want their kid named like the same Hispanic names over and over again because they gotta get jobs. That's what my mom told me. She was like, "I want to name you something interesting because I figured it'll help you get like work." And I was like, "It has." Yeah. I don't put down Hispanic on my applications, and I still get a lot of work, huh? Anyway, let's not worry about that. But anyway, I would hear him go, and no one called me Philippe. Everyone called me the same thing as my grandmother or local family, cousins, and all that. It was either my nickname or Felipe. And his name was Felipe. And so now my name was Felipe, even though it wasn't. And so I'd be walking down the block, coming home, we're going to school, and I hear, "Hey, Felipe!" And I'd be like, "Where the fuck? Hey, Felipe!" And eventually I'd see where he is. I'm, "Oh, hey, what's up, what's up?" And this guy had gone to high school with my mom, and they're very good friends and stuff, and he lived like 3, 4 doors down. And he was one of those guys in Hispanic society where he's very feminine in his nature, which happens a lot. Like I have many cousins. I have one cousin in particular where I grew up thinking that maybe he was not particularly into women, and suffice to say, he has 3 kids, a beautiful wife, and things like that. It's just his nature is very much like his mother that raised him, and so it's just that's how it is. So that wasn't whether it was one way or the other. It's just not strange growing up for me in my neighborhood, in my community, people, things like that. And so there were times where I would be at home and we were in like on the block. I would be looking at the back in the backyard, a couple floors up, so you could see a little bit before there was like tall buildings further down, but there was a little bit of a yard. A little bit of gravel, a big tree growing back there, and a little bit of grass. And then, like, you could see the yard next to us and then the other yard down. The one next to us was actually another very good friend of my mother's that she had grown up with. Well, the story's not about her yet. She has a whole other interesting life. But look out the back. It's a beautiful, hot, sunny day in the city. And I would look over and I would see this man, Felipe, and a bunch of other men, just all oiled up, just glistening in the sun, and just laying about, having, some wine, or just having a little bit of a drink, and just laughing and stuff. And for me, I was like very, very young, like 6 years old or so, looking out the backyard, and I would be like, hey, it's Felipe hanging out. That's it. There's nothing lascivious about it. It's just, a bunch of dudes just hanging out, catching a tan. I watch WWF all the time, so for me to be like, oh, a bunch of greased up men hanging out, that's weird. For one, you already heard about the whole cultural effeminate, things like that. So already that's not weird. And then another part is that aspect of like WWF was like huge at the time, and of course I was watching WWF before the World Wildlife Foundation was like, we had that name first, so we're gonna sue you, and they were like, damn it, you do have that name first. So that's why WWF replaced WWE, and now WWE is blah, blah, blah. Anyways, I digress. So it's not weird. Fast forward to the year whatever where I'm like 22. At home, there was 2 revelations at that dinner. The one is that I'm circumcised, which how the hell would I know? I always hear when you're growing up, it was like you cut the tip off. So I always thought that the ones that looked more like sausagey were the ones that were circumcised. I never thought about it. And then I remember just my so it was something talking about something my sister was talking about, that she had her son and then her son was circumcised, and there was something about that. And I was like, huh. I mean, I've taken care of her son, but I was like, oh yeah, no, that's interesting or whatever. And I just blurted out, I was like, yeah, I never saw any downsides to not being circumcised. And my sister was like, what the fuck are you talking about? You are circumcised. I'm like, but I'm not Jewish? Like, even saying that, and my girlfriend, which is now my wife, was present for this story, I believe, and she grew up in a Jewish household, and so she looks at me, and she's like, So now everyone's looking at me, and I'm like, so that was one thing. The second thing is that there's a charity going on, and there's a band playing. It was the Village People. So the Village People are playing. They're doing their thing, and I've seen a bunch of other charities, Bee Gees and things like that. My mom has had on, and she's all like grooving and moving with it. But the Village People are on, and my mom's like, she's just going about her business, not really paying attention. And so I go, hey man, I thought you grew up with the Village People. They got a lot of bangers. I didn't know they had so many like just they got some bangers on them. Songs I never heard before. You hear the main songs on the radio, but they had like an extended catalog and everything they were playing. I was just like, this is dope smoke. This is great. This is cool. So I was just mentioning to my mom. I was like, oh, Mom, did you listen to a lot of the Village People? I mean, I know you listen to a lot of like Spanish music and stuff like that. And she's like, oh, who's playing? And she came over. And she looks at the screen and she's like, he's still looking great at his age. And I'm like, what do you mean? You got a crush on someone on the Village People or something? And she's like, don't you recognize him? And this is a moment where like time stops and I'm just like, oh my God, is that my real father? Like, who are you talking? Like, what? There's like a bunch of men on the screen dancing, and all of them are in costume. Are you finally telling me like what's happening here? Like, 'cause my name is Philippe, and that's a French name, and like what the hell's going on? And she's like, you're an idiot. But no, she's like, that's Felipe. And there's only been like if she's casually being like that's Felipe, there's only one person that's Felipe. It was that dude that I grew up with. That was like, oh. And I'm like, what do you mean, Felipe is there? Like, did you just see him somewhere? And she's like, the Indian. Well, it's a Taino India. And as soon as she was like, oh, it's a Taino, because I was always like, Indian. You got an Indian, you got a cowboy, you got a whole Western thing going on. But when she was like, it's a Taino Indian, I'm like, it's a Puerto Rican Indian? Oh my God. That's the dude. I made it to 22 years of my... I thought this man was my uncle. I thought that was just Uncle Felipe. Because I remember, like, one time it was like, oh, here's $5, stay out of the... Because I had a habit of running. Whenever the streets were empty, I was always, like, running in the middle of the streets. And so I was just like, can you please just, like, stay out of the streets? And I was like, I can't accept the money unless I ask my mom if this is okay. Because I thought he was just, like, a friend uncle. Or he was just, like, in the neighborhood. Like, I didn't know they grew up together or anything like that. And so he was just like... Okay, ask your mom. So I go to my mom and I'm just like, hey, like, Uncle Felipe over there. He's like saying, like, that. So is that fine? And she's like, oh, yeah, that's fine. So that's my memories of things. Then we moved out of the city, so I didn't grow up for a long time. So my memories up to like 6, 7 years old, and then skipped to like 22 years old. And now she's just like, yeah, that dude that lived 2 houses down. He was in the mega group, the Village People, as one of the most identifiable, sorry to the other guys, but the members. And I'm like, I have to reevaluate all of my memories now. So that's another part of my weird childhood. I saw him in a concert in Sacramento, like decades later. No way that I could have like approached him and been like, hey, Felipe, oh my God, I didn't even know it was you. Here's a story about how I didn't know I was circumcised, and on the same night I found out that you were like in the Village People. Like, it's crazy. So anyway, no, I didn't get to do that because it was like, it was like an open air public concert, and we were like all the way in the back. But they killed it that night. That was like that was like another several years after that situation. That I was like, and they were still killing it. So that's a story about stuff. I still haven't fed the cats. Oh my God. I'm a failure of an author. This is why George R.R. Martin doesn't get anything done, because every time he goes onto a stream, he talks for about 45 minutes about just random stuff and is just unable to get into the work that he needs to get done. I'm just kidding. We're very different. Don't compare me to that person. This is all important. Does he? I don't know anything about his life. Maybe he does. I get the impression that he plays like Doki Doki Literature Club or something for like the 80th time by himself. Alright, let's go. Equalize and justice for all. Rise and never fall. What they gonna do when under my true. Said what I gonna do to get through ya? Who do you think you are? We're living in a small world. Oh, my music, wow. So wicked as you think you, we're living in a small world. Bob, you're right in back of me. Give me a little space. Me? Alright, I got you, sweetheart. We're living in the alright, that day will come when I shall stand and see all the wicked men and the fire let them burn. That day will come when they will try to escape and there will be nowhere to run. I know, I got you, buddy. Alright, here's your food, sweetheart. Here's your food. Also, my music paused because I took an earbud out. That makes sense. I appreciate it, but could we go? There. When I should stand and see. Oh, where am I? Ah, there we go. This is That Day Will Come by Capleton, which is proof enough more than like most other things that I'm from, like Central Jersey. In the 90s. Also, speaking as someone from Jersey City in like the 90s, Lin-Manuel Miranda, yeah, go fuck that dude. I don't know, man. He got that gentrified version of like Jersey City. Like literally the worst, most boring like version of Jersey City. We used to run an Airbnb, and then we had this couple move in or stay for a while, and they were like, "Oh no way, you're from Jersey. We just bought a house in Jersey City," and she's like, "Oh, that's near where we used to." And I just looked at them and I was like, "Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is." Honestly, though. So the thing is, the weird part for me is that growing up in my Jersey City was a lot of family members being drug dealers and gangs and just running around doing a lot of crazy stuff. But then they started getting a lot of either arrested, killed, or into construction. Construction was the big one. A lot of times it was complete under the table, over the table, under the table. Yeah, well, anyway, they get paid in cash on a daily basis. The main thing was we don't ask questions as long as you show up, especially if you have your own tools. If you could supply your own tools, then you get paid for the day to work on one of the buildings that they were tossing up in Jersey City. And so there was that mix of me growing up being around the swath of it, the people that were like still like getting in trouble, like getting arrested and things like that. Some of those people then trying to go straight, some of those people not able to. So seeing all that and just from that perspective, and then seeing more modern stuff takes on it, where it's like everyone's singing and dancing, and it's not even shot in Jersey City, and I'm looking at it like I don't know, man. I get your vision of it is a very much more modern version of it, but there was a lot of just working less than minimum because some dude got a woman pregnant. It turned out she was gonna have twins, and the dude's like, I can't keep being the hood. I can't keep selling weed on the street. I can't keep getting arrested and shit like that. And that wasn't all that often. There were a lot of people out there that were just like, yeah, I could have the kid and I could still keep doing that. I could still keep, running this and that. And so Yeah, I don't know. Seeing it like all sunshine and rainbows and stuff like that. I know nowadays a lot of those people, their family has done well. The people that were able to make it straight, the Hispanic community in Jersey City is fantastic because the grandparents and the parents and the brothers and sisters went through the work of just taking the shit jobs, just doing the things on the download they had to do to get by long enough that they were able to kind of write it out to now all of a sudden people were like, oh well, now you're sitting in a hot area, now all of a sudden you sell your property and you're gonna make a good mint on that. I don't know, that's how you do it, is just endure and survive long enough until someone decides that you live in a place that's valuable and they give you a paycheck. Here's what it is. But anyway, where was I? So one cat fed, all the cat doesn't care. Haven't even gotten my tea on, and we're about an hour in. I think that's good progress. What about the Miss Marvel version of Jersey City? Okay, well, let me tell you about that. I was probably about 13 or so, like maybe somewhere between 10 and 13, where a large group of Middle Eastern people started coming into Jersey City. To the point where I recognized it, because there was a lot of new shops popping up. Attached to those shops were new families and things like that. In particular, I remember my cousin started dating a dude that I did not like. Um, that he had just like a new shop in an area. I didn't like him because there used to be a shop that I really liked there, and then they bought the place, and then the place shut down, and then they bought the place, and then their shop was something, right? So, but he was within a lot of the group that came in. Because before that, like a lot of my memories of the area were a lot of white people, a lot of black people, a lot of Hispanics, those groups, but not so many Asians, not so many people from the Middle East. Even like the Jewish communities, there would be communities. There would actually be just like large areas where the families just gathered and they have their own businesses, and that's how they keep the money within themselves, and they circulate and they get stronger and they're able to kind of provide for the next generation better and things like that. It's fantastic. It's actually this is a very smart way of building community and supporting community within yourself. I digress. That's what I remembered of. It was only till I was like probably about, yeah, like past 10 years old where a lot of that started like breaking through, where now a lot of those communities started moving out from those like tight knit areas and started kind of going in with the rest of us kind of yahoos that were mixing it up. Um, so yeah, that's about it. So to say that like now, like what, like 20, 30 years later, um, I don't know. I can't say. I don't know too much of it. I know that yeah, the big Middle East group was very strong in Jersey City when I was going from young adult to adult. And so yeah, their representation of that in the show, I don't know if it's accurate, but I could definitely say that it's plausible. It sounds on the money for everything that I've at least the minimum that I've seen, my very dated minimum that I've seen. So yeah, I basically looked at it as like when I saw Miss Marvel, I was like, oh, there's a lot of Hispanics that now you could copy and paste and say that's the exact dynamic, that's the exact household style, shape, the way they behave, and things like that. Or a white community or black, or no matter what it is, it's not so much the people or where they come from, because by this point it's just Jersey City. There's a thing about it where once you're there, you become that place. There's no real going a long time of living in that city and then affecting it so that the way you are or the way you were kind of becomes more prevalent and more dominant. It's almost like it doesn't matter about your background history. As long as you kind of like came up in Jersey City, you become that place. The way you talk, like I remember, There's a game that just came out. I don't know what it's called, but it's super. It's like this like isekai kind of thing where it's like this chick and she's from I think somewhere around Because I thought I saw like the Holland Tunnel and I was like, oh, Holland Tunnel. I know that. That's got to be within shot of what I'm looking at. So that struck my mind for a minute, and I was like, okay, what the hell is this? And I was watching a bunch of different people reacting to it, and like it was cheesy, horrible, terrible dialogue. Apparently, it's like people are making fun of the dialogue or some of the way they speak or something like that. But so I was all strapped in. I was ready for people to make fun of something and be like, all right, let's have some light hard fun. I mean, devs work hard, so really ease off. But gain popularity, make it fun. Let's see what they got. Um, and I didn't see anything wrong with it. Like, so I saw Holland Tunnel, and then that like clicked for me, and then from then on, anything this person said, like it made sense. Like I don't know, there was no point in time where I was like, oh, that was a weird phrasing, or like one of the groups of people were like, oh, they keep saying like curses at the end of every sentence. They're just like, you're an asshole or something. They kept saying like asshole or something like that, like yada 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 asshole yada yada asshole, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, that sounds about right. It's kind of like if you're an anime person, you've heard of Naruto. You've heard of Naruto. You know the Believe It Date Bio thing. Let me explain that and then attribute that to Jersey City, where it's like you can't really fucking help it when you curse or when you say things. Like you just get into the city of it. Where in the conversation you don't realize how many times you've said "date bio" essentially. And that's the thing. In Japan, it doesn't mean anything. In Japanese, there's no actual meaning to it to translate to say, oh, he says it because of this reason. It's basically like a speech impediment where you add it at the end. Like, if someone says, like, at the end of something, like, you're such a fuck. There's fuck, and then there's fuck. I don't know, like that. I hope that really clarifies because I feel like that's a perfect definition of what I'm talking about. Like people do it all the time, but sometimes it's not as noticeable. For Jersey City, it's cursing. It's just, it is that date bio, that filler word where we don't know what to say. We might say something like God, fuck, what the fuck, or something, just some kind of curse in there that we're just not really thinking about it because when people told stories to us hearing it growing up, that's exactly how they spoke. They would just curse for the sake of cursing. It didn't mean anything. It wasn't at anyone. It wasn't really attributed in any negative way. It was just in every single fucking sentence. So you get what I'm saying. So I'm watching this, and yeah, they're laughing about it and things like that, and I'm getting a little sensitive now. I'm just like, hey, wait, let's hold up now. I sat down expecting bad dialogue. Now I'm getting very nostalgic, being like, yo, no, what the fuck is your problem? Like this kid just seems like a kid from the streets that I grew up on. Like, why did they be an asshole? You're such an asshole. Come on, don't be that way, man. So it's fine. I understand it. I think there was like a guy when I was living in Florida for the very first time. I had my big adventure sleeping on couches and working 24 hours a day, even though there was like hurricanes and storms and floodwaters up to my waist, and I was skateboarding through to get to work and stuff. None of that is a lie. I'm not even embellished a little bit. But there's one point I remember where there was like a big charity. I think it was for cancer research or something. There was a big a run. A bunch of people were running. They ran the marathon. That's what you call it. And it was like an official thing because they all had those like numbers on them and stuff. I was working in a bookstore that's been long since shut down in Winter Park Village in Winter Park, Florida. A very small area nestled in with a bunch of really hoity-toity shops that are really, really cute. But I was making like $7.25 an hour working for the bookstore that was there. And the bookstore had the cafe. The cafe was a very Starbucks type of thing. I think they did partner with it. I digress. But it was uncommon for people to just hang out there normally. Now, it seems like with this big marathon that was going through, it was just packed with people. And so I show up for work, and as I do, very friendly guy, walk up to anybody I can that seems like they have that look on their eye where they're just kind of looking around. It's a massive bookstore. It wasn't a two-floor one, but even still for the time, it was pretty massive. And so I saw this guy, a tall, handsome white guy. Um, go up to him. He's still in all of his jogging attire, and so I'm like, I'm not really trying to sell this guy anything, but still, he's looking around. So I'm like, where are you gonna put it? Right? You know, you're going on a run. What are you gonna be holding on to the book for the entire? Whatever. That's his problem, not mine. Either way, I'm just like, hey, is there anything you need? You need any help with anything? Because if you need any help, just let me know. This is my name. My name is Philippe. I help you find what you're looking for. And he was like, help you find what you're looking for. Can I ask you something? And I'm like, ask me anything you want. I'm a very open person. And he's like, okay, you're from Jersey City, aren't you? And I'm like, yes, I am. That's amazing. And he's like, yeah, I could tell from the way you speak. And I'm like, interesting. Because up till this point in my life, like maybe 19 years, 20 years, people have told me that I don't have an accent. Okay. They're like, oh, you're from Jersey and you don't sound like you're from Jersey. I don't know how I'm supposed to sound, but I mean, I identify the fact that I do sound like a henchman in Batman, like the Penguin's henchman or something like that. I get it. That's fine. You know, I know how I sound. I know what I am. I know where I come from, especially. So that's one thing. But I've never heard anything like that of someone saying the way you speak. It's not that you have an accent or anything like that. It's just literally just the words coming out of your mouth. There's only one group of people. You made it sound like we're from like Antarctica and we're like some kind of like a group. And he was like, yeah, there's really only like one group of people in America that talk like you. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's weird. I've never heard that before. People would either say that I talk like a weather reporter or like an old fashioned like radio newsman, um, or they have no idea. But there's a lot of the default is like you're from New York. Yeah, obviously you're from New York, and I'm like, no, I'm definitely not from New York. No, sorry. Very rarely have even been to New York. Is there anything else? I fed the cats. The tea is done. I spoke for about an hour straight. I mean, look, productivity comes in many different forms. For right now, the productivity is coming from the fact that I feel as though I'm being entertaining. That's cool. I mean, when you're on stream and you're in front of people and hopefully people watch things, I like to present something that's a little bit more watchable. Again, like I was saying, just to seem more approachable. I don't want someone coming in here and being like, oh, wow, this guy's working on his book. Maybe I shouldn't say anything. I like talking. I like having conversation. I like learning about people. I like telling my stories. I like listening to stories and, going back and forth and stuff like that. And in the end, I use all of that to steal and place it into my narrative and make that stronger. So any of people's sentimental memories, any special moments, any part of their personal history or their behaviors, let me know because it's going to be very, very useful for me to not credit you in the future when I make billions and billions of dollars. I'm just kidding. I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy. Honestly, none of what I'm writing is even based on anything more than my slice of childhood, my life, a lot of those type of stories, but still branching into its own reality, its own world. It's not a retelling of my childhood in some kind of pseudo fantasy way. No, it's just sometimes I'll take inspiration from my childhood or things I've been through or things I've seen, and then kind of work it into my story in one way or another. So that's kind of what I like to do. For now, at least, I don't know. If someone comes in and they're just like, you think your childhood was weird with your casually seeing people split their heads open in the street and tangentially being related to one of the main people and the village people, and I haven't even gotten to the mobsters yet. I haven't even gotten to the time where I did mention earlier where I was getting like punched and kicked and stuff like that. That leads into a story about how I got involved into the cult aspect of the Catholic Church. There is so much that I could get to that I could not fill enough time in a day with it. You know what I mean? That probably didn't make sense, but what I was trying to say is just that I have too many damn stories that are exploding out of my brain that if I kept trying to speak about them, that they would just whatever. Anyway, let me get my tea, and hopefully that will inspire me to get to work. Because the thing is, this is like the calm before the storm for me, where I'm so excited about doing this one thing that I know. I know the characters I want to write. I know the things I want to say. I know the entire start to finish because, like I said a couple days ago, I wrote that TLDR, and it was basically like exactly what I wanted. Like everything that I wanted for a character in their backstory, I have, but I didn't realize that it makes such a good standalone chapter on its own that explains so many things going forward, which saves me so much trouble because that was one of my biggest problems is later on. Like I don't want to ham fist explaining things. I want things to be explained in a very organic, natural, very easy to understand, no matter the scope of it, way. You get what I'm saying? So that's basically what's going on. Where I got that part done, and I'm happy with it. But now I'm getting into the section where I can't stop thinking about it. So I need to make it its own chapter. I need to. Oh my god, I'm talking about the writing, and I haven't even like cut the chapters into chapters yet. Whatever. I already talked about all that stuff, but that's what's going to be happening as soon as I get my shit together. Be right back. There's no BRB screen, so just use your imagination or something. You know what I can do? Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Yo, there you go. I'll be back before this is done. It's like 45 minutes. So it's not going to be a hard thing to do that, but still. It adds a little bit of motion to the scene. You know, when it's completely still, people might get the impression that there's nothing going on. Maybe they got it muted and don't hear me talking 24/7. It'd be very easy to understand if people could come in and be like, you know what? Nothing on the screen equals nothing happening. I get that. I don't want to give off that impression. If you don't even see or hear the fact that I'm going on a tangent, at least now you have a very pretty little hourglass that's not actually an hour, but it's got that figure that makes you go, yeah. But you know what I'm saying. And I catch shit for inappropriately using the term yeah. My wife's gonna be like, do you know that? Because she's on the internet so much more than I am. I just steal little bits of anytime I kind of visit the internet. That's a big one now. So fuck it, I'll go with it. It's not offending me. It didn't offend me as much as when people start saying meme. God, I hated that. I was like, I will never say it. The guy who created it calls it a meme. What the hell? Did he? Or was it the GIF guy? Look, the point is that I was like, I had a mountain that I was standing on, and after a while I was like, you know what, I don't even care anymore. This is boring. Call it what you want. That's also to say, not to say that, I expose myself to that a lot, but like my wife's biggest thing, it's like every 4 days. Because you can't do it on a daily basis because it's just so deflating to her ego. But as much as I like showing her things and being like 10 out of 10 every time, she tries that shit with me in TikTok. First of all, I'm already like, come on, Chinese spyware. Dang. I'm kidding, I don't care. If you have important stuff on your cell phone, like, why? Technology is so cheap right now that basically anything you could want to do that's like sensitive content or material, I feel like people should be conscious enough to, keep it on those devices. Like my book, for instance, entirely offline. I don't think I have even the drivers installed to go online on that like 10, 15-year-old laptop. We're gonna hack you and then leak your stuff onto the internet. Good luck, brother. Stand your ground, state. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It's not like that. It's not like that. Just dipping the bag in tea a little earlier. Alright, I think we're good here. Tablespoon of sugar. We're good to go. I dropped my spoon though. Honestly, that timer should be like my talk timer. It should be like I should whip that the hourglass, and once it's done, stop talking and swear to it. Like I solemnly swear, I will not say another word after this goes off. But I know that's not gonna happen. That's not true. That's not true. All right. While this is cooling down, I can start at least turning this son of a gun on. Normally, I have this all set up. See, I'm a little bit on the back foot. Okay. There we go. Get that one out of there. Ready to go. Also, I love this. If you don't have a mouse, you can't open the computer. I disabled the little touchpad. So, and my password is like a image that I will not describe because it will get me in trouble. Because people don't understand. I have a great, deep, weird love for two very specific things, and the image is these two things put together. And if anyone else sees it, they might be like, "Excuse me, sir." But if they sit around and listen to the entire explanation, which most people would not, when you see something, it's very easy to just make assumptions. But yeah, once you hear and understand, then you might be like, "That's cute. Okay, cool. I'm back on board with you." But it doesn't come off well on a quick view. That's all I'm gonna say about that. But either way, you have to click in certain specific areas on that image, like you're trying to unlock a game from like 1993. There was a lot of games that were like Sierra-esque point and click games. A bunch of Sierra games. Where in order to stop having their work pirated, because you could just pop it in, copy it once hard drives got big enough, and then copy it over again. To get around that, you had a manual. And in the manual, it would be something like this, but let's just say that every single one of these had a different number and a different color on it. For example. And at the beginning of the game, it would come up with what number or color is in such and such square. If you didn't have this little thing, you didn't know because you stole it on the new internet or just bought it in the mall. You would find a lot of kiosks in the mall that just sold just a bunch of that stuff. But yeah, if you didn't have this, you had luck. Similar to that. All right, so I got the hiccups. That's fine. So the first thing, like I said, I gotta do, break this into chapters, which should be fairly easy. It should be by this point, and that's why I've been kind of putting it off for a good while, is that this initial section, I haven't really worried about separating it because there wasn't enough there to worry about until now. Okay, so this all contribute. What did I just do? Okay, that's fine. Okay. You know what? Let's just copy and paste it instead of cutting anything out, just so that we do still keep the original. Keep it safe. So let me do a print preview. How many pages so far is the first? Seriously? I wouldn't have expected that. Okay, so as it stands, the first chapter is 17 pages. That sounds pretty good. That sounds like a chapter. Maybe. I have to open other books and read through them and see how they break that down. But looking at it like this, I'm like, and plus keep in mind, this is all not double. This is like single space going through. Everything's in very small font. So blow it up to the point where people could read this, separate things with the dialogue and such. That's not too bad. All right. Save this as chapter 1. That's fine. Okay. That is chapter 1. Perfect. Okay. So that's one. Open up the book again. The next section is actually going to be chapter 3, because what I'm going to be working on next is going to be apparently chapter 2. I'm happy with saying that. Which then leads into this. Okay. Okay, how long is this part? Okay. I was in a bit of a moment because I'm reading something that I put in big, bold font in the middle of the page. I could delete that, which is why my page count might go down overall a little bit. But that section was saying, hey, write this information here. I actually wrote it earlier on, and all of that I had wrote already got done. So thank you for the notation, but I am good. I'm going to start at the beginning of this again. Okay. Okay, this makes sense. Okay. Maybe this could just be chapter 3. See how long it breaks down to. That's not bad. Okay. File. Chapter 3. Okay, now I'm doing this, I am realizing that this is needed to get done, because scrolling through this over and over and over again to get to the section I want to work on is annoying. Oh no, wait, what? Chapter 1. Oh, my chapter's being broken up. Okay, that's when he leaves. you know what? This could go at the end of that chapter. Everyone was crying. Subconsciously I knew it was a lie. And when I woke I knew that it was time to pray, to make amends before the end, before my judgment day. I looked around, I stood alone, I knew what I had to say. I said it's all my fault. Okay, so here there's one chapter that's sloppy. Now that I have it grouped together, I'm seeing that I wanted to go in one direction with it. However, I didn't. I created a whole thing that kind of replaces it. So I need to go over what I wrote again, decide whether I'm going to be moving it into a different section of it or whether it needs to be changed in its entirety to fit what I have so far. Not the big deal or nothing I'm going to focus on right now, but I'm looking at one document and it goes and goes and goes and then it switches back into what I originally wrote and I'm like, oh right, that is there. So cut it out, gather it all in one spot, isolate it, and then I can decide what the heck to do with that later. Okay. Okay. Mm-hmm. 16. Uh-oh. Where'd he go? Hold on a second. Hmm? Oh, okay. There you go. So now I have the book broken up into 23 chapters. 23rd chapter is the longest because it deals with future tech. Like just stuff that's very much down the line. And I had no clue how many chapters I even had until I really broke it down like this. And then I can say, okay, most chapters have about 10 to 15 pages. There are some chapters that have just one page or a couple paragraphs on them. There was two chapters that I broke up later on that the things I wrote in them have either been overwritten, need to change, or just haven't been implemented in any way. But basically, from chapter 1 up to, I'm thinking 19, is it 19? 18. Yes, okay. So it stops at 18, so 17. So from chapter 1 to chapter 17, it's all basically a straight shot, just overviewing them. You can kind of understand how things happen. From 18 to 23, which 23 plus whatever else, that's where it starts getting a little bit dicey, where things are holdovers from the earliest points in time where I was writing my story, before I just starting into the characters and telling well about their lives, the world, and things like that. 17 on is where I feel like the story kind of starts, but that is not going to remain at chapter 17. Definitely from what I've been looking at so far, there's a lot more chapters that need to fill in between all of this, and I don't know, we'll see how that goes. We'll see how that goes, but pretty happy with it. Basically breaking down 200 pages into 23 or so different sections. It makes it so much easier on myself. Like, it's unbelievable how, as I was going through it, I was just seeing new things of being like, oh wow, is this how I move from one area to another? I could tell that this idea over here was completely 3 a.m. thoughts I just stuck in there anywhere. Chapter 23 that has all the notes and super future stuff, that is a mess. It's an incredible mess where I like what I have, but just thinking about building up towards that is a little bit daunting but exciting. But yeah, that's it. From here on out, it's just me working on the chapter. Right now, the chapter that I'm going to be working on is chapter 2 that I haven't even written. I didn't even realize that when I was looking at this. I go chapter 1, the 2 hasn't been written because that's what I'm working on, and then it's 3 all the way on. So the 23, it's really 22 chapters or so. So you can break that down to about 8 pages to 10 pages per chapter for now. It's not really true. The last one has like 38 pages or so for all the future stuff, and that was just a simple way of explaining it. You get what I mean, though. More or less, it's fairly balanced, just going in and filling it up from here. Just opening up a chapter every night, looking over it, and just saying, this is what I need to add in here. That's cool. Oh, that feels like it's going to be so much easier to kind of just work on things, to add things as I move forward. Because having everything in one was really interesting, starting from top to bottom and being like, all right, add. But I saw that if I waited another month to do that, it would have been evil. I couldn't believe it took like an hour to do that. Not including the talking. Whatever. Either way, that's about it for now. I'm done. I'm gonna go. Thanks for stopping in. I figure out how to turn this off. There we go.